now you're doing like 3 posts a day.
Yeah, I'm posting 3 times a day.
That's crazy.
Posting to stories. And I don't feel like it's taken that much more time, weirdly enough. Yeah. That's what we're trained to do on social media is everyone we follow is what they're posting about me. Churches want to reach everyone, which is wonderful. But what social media does really well is niche focus. You find a niche and scratch it. And it's hard to do that when you're trying to reach everyone. How do I feel when something happens? And being able to capture that feeling in a video makes it extremely relatable because
Hey, what's up? My name is Derek. Welcome to the Sunday Social Podcast, where we break down social media for churches. It's episode 2, and I have back with me the legend, the GOAT, Jonathan Malm. And
what's up?
Man, episode 1 was pretty good.
It was. I felt like it was good.
I thought it was pretty good. We talked about the importance of social media for church. And today's topic, we're talking more about how to create engaging content.
Yeah.
More on the practical side of stuff. Mm-hmm. And the goal for today's episode is more so you've created an audience for yourself online. Mm-hmm. You have almost 60,000 followers on Instagram. And you've been able to do a really good job of just engaging with the people that have followed you. And so I kind of want to go over your process. I think we were kind of talking about it before, but you've gone like over 2 years, right?
Yeah.
Posting every single day?
Every single day, 2 years. I mean, taking a weekend off here and there, but yeah, pretty much.
But like now you're doing consistent. Like 3 posts a day.
Yeah, I'm posting 3 times a day.
That's crazy.
Posting to stories. Yeah, trying to really... And I don't feel like it's taken that much more time, weirdly enough. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to kind of go into that, your system on like how you're able to stay consistent, and then how that can help, people that are managing accounts for church.
Yeah.
And help them stay more consistent, because I feel like that's the biggest thing, right? So your content right now is centered around what?
Yeah, so my stuff, I primarily make content that's like, if you work at a church, you're gonna get it. Like you're gonna probably send it.
If you're watching this podcast, you've probably seen this content.
You probably, yeah. And so like, I mean, I get like friends from like elementary school. They're like, Jonathan, like I saw your post that we haven't talked in like I don't know how many years. And then they're like, oh my gosh, my church staff was sharing it. Or like someone's like, yeah, I share that. Like we all share it in our staff meetings, right? Like we stop staff meeting and watch the video. So that's the type of content I create, and it's really fun because it's church work is one of the most rewarding things. It's also one of the weirdest things.
Right.
Like there's a very specific thing.
How did you get to this point? Like were you able to tap into that kind of niche of people?
Yeah, I mean, so I've always been doing stuff related to working with churches. Church Stage Design Ideas was a site I started. Sunday Social, obviously, social media. So like I get what it's like to work at a church.
Right.
And then I think I just started creating content. I started creating content on TikTok. You got me on TikTok
when it first started,
back in the day,
like 2019,
before COVID. Yeah. And we both had some like viral videos, and then I was like, this is fun, but I had no aim to it. I was just creating silly videos. And if you go on there, you can probably still find them. And then I started realizing like the stuff that I was engaging with was like very niche. Like my TikTok algorithm got very like, it's all chefs teaching me how to cook cool things. It's all comedians. It's very interest based. And I noticed that the algorithms, Instagram jumping on the TikTok bandwagon, were gearing toward highly specific, like this is who I am. Like your identity is presented to you on social media. And so I started like, okay, what can I make that's relatable? And working at church, that's the stuff. That's the stuff I get. That's what I understand.
What I want to know, because I don't think I've ever actually asked you this, but I feel like you have a way of like creating content for every area of the church. Have you literally worked? Because you're a PK, right?
Yeah,
so
I'm
it's
a PK.
like, have you literally worked in every area of the church? Is that why you know it so well?
Yeah, pretty much. I think also being a pastor's kid, my brother, who's also obviously a pastor's kid, we talk about this stuff. My dad, we just love joking with each other and talking about things.
You've been exposed to it all.
Yeah, my brother's a teaching pastor. He had a church close by in town and stuff. So like we're regularly talking about this stuff. We're sharing stuff. So yeah, I've experienced all of it. A lot of it though is just by listening to people because, I post a video. I don't do Kids Min a ton, but I post a video about kids ministry, and then people leave comments that are like, oh, this happened or this. And so I just listen, and you hear things that like recur and like, oh, that's something that people regularly deal with. So a lot of times I just make, like I think before I even had kids, I made a joke about like parents sneaking past the kids ministry, and like that blew up because like, oh, anyone with kids who volunteers at church understands that feeling, right? So just listening, I think, is a huge thing. I think that's just observing.
Right. That's key. I think
Yeah.
observing and understanding like who's watching.
And being aware of how you feel in moments. I think, we'll talk about this probably a little bit later. I saw the notes, but how do I feel when something happens? And being able to capture that feeling in a video makes it extremely relatable, because that's what comedians do really well. We talked about in the last episode, the idea that like, Jerry Seinfeld, what's the deal with airline food? It's not funny. That's not a funny idea. But when they used to serve airline food, if you're like, oh, this stuff's disgusting, is a visceral response. You felt that before, and he put his finger on it, and you're like, yep, that's me.
Do you feel like that has been like the key factor in growing your account is being relatable?
Relatability is everything. I think, again, I don't think that I'm funny. Okay. But I don't post funny content. Like, I'm not like yuck it up guy. Like, I post a few puns or something, but like what does really well is I can post a video that's like, kids pastors are crazy, right? Like, and people are gonna be like, oh my gosh, you'll never believe what happened. Like, everyone has their own story and they relate to it. That's what we're trained to do on social media. Is everyone we follow is what they're posting about me. And that's that relatability factor. I always try to post something in such a way as I've felt that way, or I've seen that, or I've been frustrated by that, or my friend has felt that way. I want them to feel like this is me.
Yeah.
Or this is my friend.
And I think relatability equals shareability.
Yeah.
Right? Like when
100%.
you relate to it, you're more than likely to share it with somebody.
And Instagram has said that's the number one metric that they care about is, are people sharing this content? So I mean, like, I'm getting videos now that have more shares than likes, which is huge. And that's why Instagram has acknowledged that sharing is what Instagram is a sharing platform. You send that reel. Sharing is caring. Yeah, you share that reel with your friend. Like, you send it in their DMs, like or you post it on your story. Those are all shares of like, I want other people to see this because this is me.
Right.
That's what social media started as, is we were posting about ourselves because we wanted people to know us. Now we still want people to know us, but we want the people we follow to know us and show us ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah, I think with this algorithm-based social media content, you're trying to figure out like what's your lane in the space, and being relatable helps.
And that's hard for churches because I think churches want to reach everyone, which is wonderful, but what social media does really well is niche focus. You find a niche and scratch it, and it's hard to do that when you're trying to reach everyone. Radio stations know this. There's some stations that do well playing a mix of everything, right? But like, you don't have a station that plays like metal followed by country followed by rap. Like, that people wouldn't like that. They just don't listen to it. So there's a reality of like, you got to choose a lane, like you said.
That's so good. I never thought about that like that. Honestly, it's so true though. Yeah, because then I don't know what to expect if I'm listening to something that's like everywhere.
And Instagram doesn't know who to put you in front of.
That's true.
I realized the first time when I saw that on TikTok was, I don't know if they still do this, but whenever you would check the statistics of your video, it would show your followers and it would show similar videos that they were watching. And what that kind of helped you know is like, this is what your followers are interested in.
Yeah.
And it was really cool, but like, it was tracking all of that because they wanted to know, if you liked this video, you're probably going to like these other 50 videos. Because you have to remember, social media, they want your eyes to be glued to your screen for hours at a time. So they only want to serve you stuff that you're going to like.
Yeah.
They don't care if it's Christian, if it's atheist, if it's Republican, Democrat. They don't care as long as you're going to watch it, right? Like,
sure.
They do care a little bit because there's social pressure or whatever, right? But like, they really just want eyes. Like, that's the most important thing to them. So if you're creating content that people like, they're going to show it to people.
Yeah. So for a church, right? I'm a social media manager. I'm posting for church, right? Like, what in your opinion is something that I can start implementing as far as content to be more relatable? Like, are there certain types of content? Are there things we can share that's more relatable? Like, in your opinion, what do you think that is?
I think the key is choosing an avatar. So like, it's easy for me whenever I make mostly I make a post for myself. I'm like, oh, I would think this is funny because I'm my audience, right? Like, I work at a church. But for churches, if you're trying to make it for, okay, first of all, I think in churches, we don't even have someone in mind whenever we're posting something. We have our church in mind, right? But like, if you can say, Victoria at my church is my key person, I want to make a video that will relate to her. So Victoria is, I'm thinking of a Victoria at my church, but like, Now I'm going to make up a person. Victoria is in college. She feels overwhelmed by her coursework. She wants to be involved in church more, but she feels like she can't. She feels like her life is overwhelmed. So what would Victoria relate to that I could post based on knowing that about her? And you create that content, and it's going to relate to people. And the weird thing is even people who are not in that space, parents who maybe used to be in that space, they're going to see that and say, oh, I know someone who's like that.
Wow.
Sometimes the more you focus on, I mean, they tell you this with writing books. One of the best things you can do when you're writing a book is imagine a single person across the table from you, and you're telling them what they need to know. When you write for one person, people find themselves in that. But if you're writing for everyone, you're writing very generic, neutral stuff that doesn't actually help anyone. So be very specific. I think that's the biggest thing, is choose a person that is representative of the majority of your followers and make content for them.
That's the nugget for this episode. No, honestly, I think just in general with social media, that is the key. Like, you can't create for everyone.
How are you going to relate to someone if you don't know who you're talking to?
Right.
Yeah.
So you have to pick somebody and filter it through that lens of like, would this piece of content help that person?
Yeah.
Would it relieve a certain pain for them? Would it shed some light on something that maybe they didn't know before?
Yeah.
And so if you're filtering that lens through that, you'll kind of start to understand, okay, this content is where we should be heading or not.
And the tendency, I think, with churches is we have to solve every single problem. So like, okay, we're going to make a post about anger. And so like a carousel post would be like, here's 4 ways to overcome anger, right? That's one approach. But another approach is just acknowledging how difficult it is to forgive. You don't even have to solve the problem. With my posts, I never solve problems. I do sometimes when people ask me questions on the weekend, but like there's the value of feeling like, I'm understood. That's what counseling is so valuable. Someone is listening to me and validating what I feel, and I'm not alone, and they understand. Counseling is powerful. If the counselor never says anything practical to you, just the value of feeling like, I have someone who's in my corner. It's huge. And what a great thing for a church to be able to be in people's corner, to say like, yeah, we get it. Forgiveness is hard. Like people are jerks, and like we get it.
Yeah.
And then you're like, dude. And then what a cool thing if then on Sunday you're talking about forgiveness, and that's the perfect way to segue to like, hey, by the way, we're talking about forgiveness on Sunday. We're gonna give you some really practical tips on how to forgive, and it just ties all this together. Where now they're like, dude, Sunday morning is speaking to my life.
That's so good. How do you think, like, because I'm wondering, we focus so much on ideation, coming up with ideas for content, things like that. But what you're saying is more so like just be an observer, being a listener to who. Because
most of that ideation is just copying trends, right? Which is like, there's value in that. I'm not saying you shouldn't push people into chairs, right? But like, I very rarely follow trends, and they just like, they do well because I'm talking about that relatability element. Like, you don't have to follow trends and you can still have viral content, or not viral, but like, man, you hit, the weirdest thing is when I have viral content, it hits more of my followers, right? So those are the people I know are going to connect with it. And so sometimes my goal is not necessarily to go viral to like 1 million, 6 million, 7 million views, but it's just to hit those 50, 60,000 people who follow me. And I want them to see this, right? Like, I think they're going to really like this. Carousels, I feel like, do the best of that. Carousels hit the majority of my people. Currently, I know you've had more viral success with carousels, which is crazy to me. But and reels tend to be more the broad reach, whereas carousels tend to be like, this is me really engaging with my people.
Is there something for you that you're like, okay, somebody in my space, in my followers are like, I should talk about this topic, or like, what is your kind of process with that? Like, okay, I should probably make a video about this because I feel like a lot of people are struggling with it or have experienced it.
No, so interestingly enough, like 6 months ago, I have a lot of sponsors on there, and I'm trying to kill it for my sponsors, right? And so I was like, I'm just going to evaluate what content has done well and see what topics. These are joke themes for me. So I have a notes thing of like the 50 topics that if I make a video about this, it's always going to hit well. And so I just, I still try to experiment. I still try to push the envelope. I try a new, communion lately has been like blowing up for me, right? It wasn't on that list, but like, okay, so I still experiment, but then I definitely go back to that list. And that's part of what helps me create so much content that 3 times a day is I can always, for the first thing in the morning, I can kill it with this post. I can create more of like a silly share this post, an engagement post. I can create a more meme post. I can do all these different things because I know I have like an anchor post that like, this is going to be good quality content.
That's good. Yeah, and I think too, and we kind of touched on this last episode, but it's like understanding like not every post needs to go viral.
Yeah.
There's certain purposes for certain posts. And
You don't want to post a bomb. Like I still get frustrated because like my average, like a average post should get like 20,000 views. Like when one gets below 10,000 views, I'm like, oh, it hurts, right? But like, so I don't want to bomb because that means it's just probably not good content. Like it probably just didn't connect with people.
Which is an indicator like you probably shouldn't post it again.
That's probably not great material, right? But like, if I'm hitting average, that's good. Like I'm doing good. I'm still maintaining people and
Yeah. So I want to kind of shift the focus on from going to be more relatable to like more consistent. Because I feel like that's what a lot of churches struggle with too, is like staying consistent. We always try and like the calendars and the schedulers and all that stuff. But what you're saying is for you, what's worked is you're just doing something every day.
Yeah.
So kind of talk to me about like if kind of two buckets, right? Somebody that has kind of the flexibility that you do to post every day or create every day and then post every day. But also too, like maybe there's somebody that's doing this as a volunteer.
Yeah.
They're trying to stay consistent. Like what would you say to those people that are trying to maybe post 3 to 5 times a week, but their schedule is kind of tight, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think the key is like, you know, a lot of times I create something new every day, right? Like it's just like from ideation to creating is like a 30-minute process, right? So you don't need to overthink it, first of all. But then, there are days that's all I do. But then there are ideas that I have that are in my notes that I'm working on, that I may be buying, you know, that one prop that I need, or I'm just like, I have the root idea, but it's not quite there yet. Like the communion one, that's my most viral video. It's almost like 7 million views right now. Like my wife gave me that idea, like, you know, 4 weeks earlier, and then randomly one night after we put the kids to bed and she was watching TV in the living room, I went into the room and like I got some props real quick and I did it and posted it that night. And like, but it was a month in the making, right? Like, so there's a lot of ideas that I have that I'm like working on and like really kind of like forming. So I think that's the key, is just like constantly be putting into your list of things you can post. You know, if you see an idea, like don't even just bookmark it, like actually put it in a note. So you're not having to go through your bookmarks. You're actually going through your notes and saying boom, 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 boom. I think I have like 30 ideas in my notes right now that are not maybe ever going to see the light of day, because I'm like, they're not quite there, but there's something there.
That's good.
And I just wait until, you know, one day it's going to work.
So you have a bank of like...
Huge bank of ideas, yeah.
That I think is huge, because I think a lot of people think that they just get inspired and like, I'm going to create something. But it's like for you, it's a running list.
Yeah.
The moment you get inspired, you write it down so you won't forget it.
Yeah.
So the moment it comes down to creating, you're not like thinking from scratch every time.
And again, I'm focusing on the relatability. So that communion idea one was, my wife came home. She's like, I have an idea for you. She was at work and obviously not engaged at work, but she was like, you know how whenever you're doing communion and like the person's not giving you clear instructions, and I'm like, so it was that feeling, right?
Yeah.
The feeling. I didn't know how I was going to work that out on a video, but I knew that feeling was there.
Yeah.
So I always capture the feeling, and then I can figure out the rest later. But like the feeling is like, yeah. So like this moment of, you know, I have one where it's like when the drummer can't stay on the track because his fills are too loud, right? Like that's a feeling, that's a moment, and I can work something around that.
Yeah, I think the biggest kind of theme is like observing. You're just observing life.
Observing how you feel, that like that gut inside you.
Which is funny enough, because I was talking to another creator recently who's doing pretty well on Instagram, and that was his thing, because I was asking him like, how do you come up with content? And he's like, it's honestly built around conversations that I have with people, and the moment like I see somebody's like interest or their eyes kind of light up or whatever, I know that topic is like, okay, I should probably create content around that.
Isn't that ministry? Like to be listening to people and say, this is what you're going through. Now let me help you with that. Like that's why social media can be ministry, because we're talking to people's issues, what they feel, what they're going through.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or what he said, which I hope he doesn't get mad that I steal this little nugget, but
who is it? And then you can steal it all you want.
Jacob Salguero.
Okay.
Yeah. Which he'll probably be on this podcast.
Blowing up. He's amazing.
Oh, he's awesome. I love the guy. He said that like he'll tell people that are like managing social media accounts like for like sermons and stuff to be in the audience and like the parts of the message that get the most response, that is what you should be creating content around. Yeah. Because it's like, obviously it's hit a nerve.
It was a visceral response. People clapped. Like it was really good.
So it's like, why would you create something outside of that?
Dude, and Jacob, his content is so good. He's done some reels now, but he's doing mostly carousel posts, and they're just like thoughts. Like it's like,
but they're relatable. It's all around like, Gen Z, you know,
Gen Z does not hate the church. And then he talks a little bit more. And it's just like, It's like what used to be maybe a tweet previously, and he turned it into a carousel post, and it's blowing up because it's just like really rich content. Right. That's something we've already felt.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like you just have to know like your context, your church. What is your church going through right now? Yeah. Is it struggling with fear or whatever? You don't want to go create something that's totally opposite of that.
Well, and that was the crazy thing about COVID. And I think that's why it gave me this like aha moment, was for the first time in my life, I knew everyone was dealing with the same thing. Those first 2 weeks, regardless of how you feel about COVID now, everyone was scared.
Straight up.
Like, what is this, right? Yeah. So, and it was shut down, and we felt frustrated, we felt scared, we felt like alone. We felt really alone. So those 3 things, I'm like, every single person in the world is going through these 3 things. I can create content for that. And it blew my mind, because I'm like, and then after that, I'm like, why am I not doing this on the reg? Like, there's stuff that everyone is going through regularly. I mean, I'm not an angry person, but I struggle with anger. Like, we were driving in the car today, and I was like telling you how I have to chill out my road rage. I was
so angry,
giving someone such a passive aggressive thumbs up. And I was like, I'm trying to work on that because I have a kid and I don't want him to see me be road raging on people, right? Like, we all experience these universal things, and why shouldn't we be creating content around that?
Yeah, I agree. I think just understanding your people and knowing what they're struggling with. And then one thing that we talked about off camera was like your DMs.
Yeah.
Like, what are people DMing you?
Yeah.
Because people DM you as a church, like, hey, I'm struggling with this. Can I talk to a pastor about this? I need help with this. Like, if understand that.
That's part of why I hate whenever churches schedule, because I'm like, you're not checking your account, you're not seeing those DMs, you're responding 4 days later, and if people are DMing you, they're your super fans. Maybe don't call them that, but they're the people who are engaging with your church the most.
Right.
They're reaching out, and if you're not reaching back, like, what are you doing? Like,
right.
You're missing out on ministry opportunities and on valuable, like, hey, let's pray for someone. It's really cool. I saw this one guy who actually, I think we had him on one of our master classes, where he had this idea for like prayer ministry online, where you say, hey, DM us if you have any prayer requests. So they send you like, hey, I'm trying to get a job this week. And then what he does is he just records a voice memo. God, we thank you so much for James. We pray that you could be able to get that job this week, that you would open opportunities. He just records it and sends it to him. And like, ministry right there, like, you actually physically prayed with someone online. And I mean, it's just incredible, right? Like, I think that's so cool. It's such a cool opportunity that I feel like we miss out on, and when we're not active in the account.
Yeah, it's like, man, on the other side of this is a human.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
yeah.
And we have to understand that. I think we get so caught up in like the look of it, the perspective, or the perception of it. But it's like, man, we're all just trying to reach people at the end of the day, and whatever does that.
And as much as like influencers get this negative rap, right? Like, my wife was going through postpartum, and like, honestly, following influencers that she could relate to that had been through the same thing was life-changing for her in a way. And like, we think of influencers being, the Kim Kardashian, where we're promoting the latest lip liner or whatever, right? But like, no, influencers are people that can actually encourage people through rough times. Your church can actually do that. Like, you can be influential online, yes, in person too, but online as well, for people that are really struggling with stuff. Like, it can be life-changing as much as silly as Instagram and Facebook and TikTok are. It can be life-changing.
Yeah. It's like, man, you have, like you said in the beginning of the episode, if I've experienced it or struggled with this, then more than likely somebody else has.
Yeah.
And so why not just create something that's going to reach a person? And
sometimes we're afraid to I'm afraid to post stuff, because I'm like, this feels very, very specific. But honestly, the more specific stuff I post, the more it blows up.
It's kind of crazy, right?
It is. There's this idea online right now, like, there's no unique experiences, right? Like, we've all experienced the same thing, and it's true. Like, my sister-in-law last night was like, she was asking me, she's like, who was your cartoon crush growing up? And I'm like, like, I know that, I feel that. And so we were talking about like the people that were cartoons that we were crushing on when we were kids. And I was like, just such a relatable thing. Like, so I think sometimes we take ourselves too seriously and say we're the only ones. Whenever, like, just try it. It might bomb, and that's okay. Like, if you're posting a lot, okay, move on. I regularly have stuff that bombs, but then one hits it, and like, everyone's gone through that, and it blows up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of social media.
Beauty of it.
You get another shot.
You always get another shot. And that's the key with consistency. The more you do it, the more chances you have of hitting it right.
And the more you can start to find your voice as a church.
Yes.
And like, what works for you. Because like, I don't know if we said it this episode or last, but it's like, what works for you personally in our content doesn't necessarily work for me.
Yeah.
Right? Because we're in two different spaces. We talk about two different things, right?
Yeah.
But we can always, get inspiration from each other. But there are things that, like, for me, carousels are crushing.
Yeah.
for you, Reels are doing amazing.
Reels are killing
you
it,
know?
yeah.
So it's like, it's always different.
And different formats of Reels too. Like we talked about, you know, if you're talking on with your voice on a mic, like I've had to get my audio a little bit better. When I got my audio better, it helped me a little bit, but my voice doesn't do as well as whenever I just either put like an AI voiceover or whenever I'm just like pointing at the screen like an idiot, you know?
Cool. Well, yeah, to wrap up, kind of just recapping what we talked about, you know, relatability for you has been the one thing that has helped you grow your account to what it is now. And then also just being an observer of life and your experiences and understanding, like, if I've gone through it, more than likely somebody else has. So let me talk about it.
Yeah, that's it.
So as a church, I think for you, what is that for you? What is that your church has gone through or is going through that you can talk about, relate to people, and understand that we're all not in this alone. We're in this together. And how can we portray that as a church? So thanks for tuning in. Subscribe if you haven't, and we'll catch you in the next episode.